How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Corey Bosmer, host of Conversations with Corey, and also the person that runs the social media football page on Facebook and Twitter, known as Football of Kentucky DBA. Today's guest is Bellarmine Knights head men's basketball coach, Scotty Davenport. How you doing today, Mr. Davenport?
Good morning. Doing good. No complaints.
So I want to ask you, I looked up some videos of you in your past on YouTube, and you seem constantly like really passionate. Where does your passion come from in coaching?
When I was 9, when you're 9, Halloween day is a pretty good day, especially if it's a Sunday.
Right.
At 1:15 at Sunday afternoon, my dad passed away 15 feet from me of a massive heart attack. That day probably shaped the rest of my life. It was a different era. You didn't have a lot of things to do other than sports. I lived in a very blue-collar neighborhood. Wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Where I grew up, who I grew up with, the way I grew up, was it tough? Yes. So probably the first, I had the best basketball goal in my backyard. Everybody played there. I made the 9th grade basketball team as an 8th grader. There was only 2 of us. It was a junior high school at the time, not middle school. So it was grades 7, 8, 9. And we had to wear a tie on the day of a game because we wanted to look special.
Right.
Our coach was a tremendous teacher, a tremendous leader. So there's 2 of us, Mike Shaw and myself. You had to wear a tie. The only tie I had in my life was a clip-on tie. Corey, you're too young. You may not know what I'm talking about.
No, hey, I went to DeSales High School. I had to wear a tie year-round, so I know all about the clip-ons.
The only tie I had was the clip-on tie that I wore to my dad's funeral.
Right.
So now there's a huge dilemma. My mother goes and buys me at the local department store 2 ties. She's from Greene County, Kentucky. She ran her own successful business, beauty salon, for 43 years. She didn't know how to tie a tie. Her brothers all were in the military. They grew up in Greene County. They went to Fort Knox.
Right.
So who's going to teach me to tie a tie? I arranged through his guidance to sneak into school an hour early. And the basketball coach meets me in his classroom and ties my tie around his neck, takes it off, puts it around my neck, and I look great the whole day. Well, the next step is he would teach me how to tie a tie. So beginning right there, coaches, teachers, later on principals, athletic directors, counselors, assistant principals, shaped my life.
Right.
I mean, my mother was a superstar. I said, how did we ever make it? She said, I just worked hard. There was no other answer. So from there, I go on to Iroquois High School, and I played for a gentleman, and he was old school. He would have a very difficult time in this day and age. So he comes to me, his first year as the varsity coach was my junior year, and he shares with me. He says, on a Thursday, he said, meet me in the stadium, 10 o'clock Saturday morning. Well, I thought he was going to run me. I thought I was being punished.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm going to help you and your mom. So I get there like 9:30. He pulls up in a blue Ford pickup truck, 2 garbage cans in the back. Iroquois at the time would host games from DeSales. They didn't have a stadium at the time. Male played there. Central played there. A lot of school. Flash 8 played there, which now is closed. And he pulls up, and I'm thankful I'm not going to have to run. And he says, he doesn't have a stick with a nail on it, a blower, a rake, a plastic bag, 2 metal garbage cans. And he says, you take underneath and I'll take the track. And we clean the entire stadium by hand, piece by piece. The next Thursday, he gives me $25. So now I got to make a decision, because I'm getting a lot of social pressure that I'm brown nosing. I'm just trying to make the team. I'm trying to get playing time. But in reality, I mean, $25, it's like I won the lottery. Like, and he was just trying to help. He knew my situation at home, etc. So as this progressed, you could see how coaches really, I use the word shape my life. So I go to the University of Louisville. I'm a student. I think there's a plaque on a desk in the Natural Science Building, room 101, that says, "Here sat the worst chemistry student in the history of the University of Louisville," with my name on it. Because I had these visions of being a pharmacist till I took one semester of chemistry. And I said, "Who you're kidding? You're going to be a basketball coach. You're going to be a teacher." And I wasn't in a fraternity. I didn't drink. I wasn't very social. I only lived 5 blocks from campus.
Right.
I didn't live in a dorm. So I just hung out between classes in the gym. There was not a student center at that time. And one day, between 12 and 1, every day, the faculty and the coaches all play. I don't care if Wes Unseld, Daryl Griffith, I don't care who came in there. Nobody was playing between 12 and 1 except coaches and the faculty. And there was about 10 minutes to go, about 10 minutes to 1. And one of the faculty members had to go give an exam. And I had, a sweatshirt, blue jeans, high top Chuck Taylors on. And this gentleman turned to me and said, "Hey, can you help us finish this game?" Sweatshirt, I rip it off I go, blue jeans and all. And he get done, he said, "Did you play in high school?" I said, "Yes, sir. I played at Iroquois High School." He said, "Well, you ought to walk on our JV team." This is back when all the Power Fives had JV programs. I said, "Yes, sir. How do I do that?" And he told me to go see the secretary, go see the trainer, go get a physical, et cetera, meet the coach. So I make the JV team as a walk-on. And that gentleman that did that was Bill Olson, Coach Crum's assistant, to go on to become the athletic director. That one moment changed my whole life. Just in the gym, and he said, "Hey, would you like to walk on the JV team?" Coach Jerry Jones was the JV coach at the time. Next thing you know, I'm helping in recruiting as a student in terms of the visits, being a host, etc., working camps in the summer. Then I became a JV coach down at now closed Aarons High School, which is the Brown School down at First and Ali. And then I was a JV coach at Ballard. And then I became a GA back at Louisville. And then off I went. I was assistant at VCU. I was the head coach at Ballard. Then on back to Louisville under Coach Crum, under Coach Patino, both. And then 18 years now at Bellarmine.
So you said you've been at Bellarmine 18 years?
Yes, sir. And right before my mother passed away, like it happened 10 minutes ago, she said, "Scotty," and she said, "if you really, really work hard, you might get a real job, make somebody yourself." And it was funny at the time, but you think as I sit here that I've never really had a job.
Right.
A job, by definition, would be a vocation. There's a lot of vocations in the world, but I've had an advocation. And what I've advocated is young people, because people did that for me. It's incredible. It's incredible.
So you were talking about how you went back as a coach a couple times at U of L. What was your time like at U of L? And what's your thoughts on the state of the program as we speak currently?
Well, I have no real comments now because I'm never able to see practice or any of those kind of things.
Right.
I was a graduate assistant 2 years under Coach Crum. I coached at VCU under Mike Polio. And a lot of people are not aware of this. My first son, Russ, was born while I was in Richmond, came back. He was born and we moved right back. But the assistant coach on that staff that I served with was Tubby Smith.
Really?
And I mean, I'm there living in a dorm. My wife's 8.5 months pregnant here in Louisville. And I would go live, it was not air conditioned, and I'd literally lived in the office, and I'd get a call and Tubby'd come back and meet with me, and we'd end up in some restaurant drawing plays on napkins. And to this day, we laugh about it. And then, next thing you know, he's an assistant at Kentucky. Then he's the head coach at Kentucky, and I'm Coach Crumb's assistant. And we would talk about drawing plays on napkins. But under Coach Crum, under Coach Pitino, 2 Hall of Fame coaches, it was great because they both thought the game should be played the same way from a fundamental standpoint, but they taught the game 180 degrees the other way. Coach Crum was a math major. He's very analytical, very thoughtful. If you get this angle and you're above right here, Coach Pitino taught it at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But they still thought the game should be played the same way, but they taught it different. And what that taught me is the number one lesson in coaching is there's more than one way to be successful.
Yep.
There is no one way. But they were both incredibly giving people. They gave and they gave and they gave, and it was not about recognition. And the stories are endless. And I'm going to keep them private because that's what they want. But it was amazing. It's just amazing. But they were very different. But they were both giving, and they were both tremendous teachers.
No, they definitely are. It shows, like, if you look back at their coaching trees, it's insane. It's endless. It's wild how many people like yourself, are connected to them, to great individuals.
Well, I am fortunate. I was the first person, or the only person, I guess, that Coach Pitino ever kept from a previous staff.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes. And I'll never forget that morning. We were starting individuals. It was 7:30 group. I had him in there at 7. He gets there. He says, Scotty, let me see a second in the coach's office. Well, in the coach's locker room. Well, this is it. You're done. This is it. And he walks in, he goes, I've never kept a coach from a previous staff. And I said, yes, sir, coach, I'm aware of this. And it broke his train of thought. And he goes, up. What do you mean you're aware of it? I said, coach, you coached at Kentucky. I coach at Louisville. I've read every book. I've listened to every radio show. I know everything about you. You were the bitter enemy. I know everything. And he started laughing. So later that day, driving to Wabash Junior College to see Antoine Barber. And he turns to me, he said, there was a large faction did not want me to keep you. They were very opposed. And I looked at him like, wow, I thought people liked me. I've been loyal. I went to the university. And he said, you want to know why? I said, yes, sir. And he said, and he was adamant. He said, well, they said I was making a mistake because you were so loyal to Coach Crum. I said, yes, sir, I was. And then he said, and I told every one of them, you're wrong. I'm going to keep him because he'll be that loyal to me. And he was right. He was exactly right. But they were phenomenal teachers. And what it taught me was you got to be who you are. You talk about the coaches, though. So the first staff at Louisville under Coach Pitino, and back then there was no newspapers that were digital. They were, you had to buy them.
Right.
Every morning at 6 a.m. The last thing I would do, leave my house, I would take 50 cents, stop on the corner of Cardinal and Warnock, same paper machine every morning, buy a newspaper, pull it into the office. In my office every morning, and there was 3 sections of the paper. Everybody have a section, trade them around. It's Kevin Willard, Maryland's head coach, Mick Cronin at UCLA, and myself. You don't think there was basketball talk in that office? Every morning, 6:15, we're in my office with a newspaper, waiting for coach to say, all right, guys, come on. And then we go into the first meeting of the day and start the day. Every morning, Mick Cronin, Kevin Willard, myself. Now, you talk about being the luckiest coach that's ever coached. That's me.
Well, it sounds like it being in a room with them every day.
Every day.
Talk about the brain power in that room.
Every day. We and I was the oldest. I was 45. Mick was 30. Kevin was 25. That was our age breakdown at that time. And it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Now, when you talk about the difference in ages there, like one thing, especially in today's game that I've noticed with coaches think that they can't learn from the younger coaches. You learn from everybody. What's your thoughts on that to the coaches that say they can't learn from the young ones?
I'm going to reference, I referenced, Mick and Kevin.
Yeah.
Right now, I've got my youngest son, Doug, who will be the next head coach at Bellarmine. That's already decided. Bo Braden, a DeSales grad.
I love Bo. Bo's a good man.
Who went to center and is one of the all-time winningest players there ever. And Al Davis, a tremendous story that played here at Bellarmine, he's from Colorado, married a girl from Bellarmine, and has got two beautiful kids. His wife's a teacher here at JCPS. These three are incredible. They're innovative, they're motivating, but most of all, they're passionate. And, coaching, and I use the phrase all the time, everybody, goes 0 to Calipari, 0 to Kenny Payne, 0 to Mick Cronin or Kevin that's making, millions of dollars. Well, that's not the majority. And one thing, and they're so sick and tired of hearing me talk about it, but where it was different is I was a JV coach at Aarons High School. I was a JV coach at Ballard. I was a graduate assistant. I was the third assistant at VCU. I was a head high school coach. And those things, it's different now. It is. But in my era, though, paying those dues, making those sacrifices, coaching young people out of every demographic you can imagine, from Aarons High School. At the time, Aarons was the most segregated school ever, not based on race. It was segregated economically. No one had anything. No one. The demographic of that school was Clarksdale Housing Project, Portland, the West End, East Louisville, what's now Nulu, but it wasn't Nulu back then.
Yeah.
And we had one parent come to games, a gentleman, not the Chris Middleton in the NBA, but a Chris Middleton, his father. And like on senior night, my wife would walk out with seniors. Well, back then she was actually my girlfriend. She would walk out with seniors. I mean, and you did, no matter what you need to do, you did it for those young people. Why? Because people did it for me with a less than fortunate background. That's why.
Indeed. So I want to talk to you about, you said your son is already been the predetermined next head coach of Bellarmine, correct?
Yes.
Are you retiring soon?
I have no idea. And I'm being straight up honest. I don't know. The moment I have to go to work versus I get to go to work is when I'm
That's a good way to look at it. When you have to versus when you get to. That's a big difference. People don't understand that.
Well, go back to what I said. Never had a job. I've been an advocate of young people, again, because people did that for me. I'm going to be very, very emotional here. In the last 18 months, I've been to 8 visitations or funerals. People 2 years older than me, people 2 years younger than me. High school teammates, high school classmates, elementary, junior high, high school, all the way through. How come that wasn't me? They had very difficult lives. They lived hard. I had a very difficult life. Made some choices about not living as hard. And the reason was because of the game of basketball. And I've never gone to one of these visitations. I go up, I pay my respects and I think how lucky I am. How come that wasn't me? And they're great individuals. I had a very difficult life, but basketball was the difference. It was the difference. And what it teaches you, when you're a part of something that's bigger than you,
Yep.
it'll bring things out in you that's never, ever, ever been uncovered. And it's happened to me my whole life. I mean, it has. And like I say, I know there's different ways to be successful.
Yeah.
Doug, and Al, their paths much, much different than mine, but I wouldn't trade one thing, not one thing. Now, I wish I had those 8 friends back. It's a lot of those guys spent nights at my house. A lot of those guys, my mom would, maybe they had difficulties at home. My mom would do their uniforms, if you played back-to-back games, on and on and on.
Yeah.
But it taught me being a part of something bigger than you will allow you to make sacrifices, make good decisions, because you never want to mess it up. You never want to mess it up.
Correct.
That was my life.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So I want to talk to you about how the unfortunates of how the NCAA is with that stupid rule. Now, I know you've answered this question 1,000 times, but I want to hear from you. Like, how special was it to you to hear a coach with the stature of John Calapari advocate very hard for you and your kids?
Well, first of all, the appreciation to him stems from the fact he didn't have to do that.
Okay.
He didn't have, he's talking to the most rabid fan base in the country. Wow, well, he didn't have to do that. I mean, he had nothing to gain whatsoever for doing that. Nothing. Why would John Calipari in a statewide press conference address Bellarmine's eligibility issue to play in the postseason? He didn't have to do that.
Right.
That's a sign of greatness. When true passion is when you do things for the right reason. And he did it because he believes it was wrong. Now, me personally, I can't quit.
Of course not.
If our players, 3.5 minutes to go, we're down 4, quit on me, that wouldn't be a very good place. I mean, I'd go crazy. So how can I quit on them? Now, the unfortunate part of it is, since March 8th of 2022, coming up on 1 year, it's consumed my life because I can't quit. And I get berated. I get ripped. You knew the rule. You knew what you were signing for. Don't complain. Well, in January of 2019, we were told we were eligible for every tournament except the NCAA tournament, which means we were eligible for the NIT,
right,
the CIT, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So on March 8th, we win at 7:00 on that Tuesday night. We ran up that ramp. We thought we were in the NIT. Now, the next morning, no, you're not. And then the research started. That was Wednesday morning. We researched 22 years, back to the year 2000. 39 schools had transitioned from Division II to Division I, and nobody had ever in history won the automatic qualifying bid of their conference, and we did. So, okay, now things are different. Let's address our conference commissioner, Ted Gumpert. He fought the NCAA. There's a panel of 4 that decide the NIT. It is the National Invitational Tournament. You know what that means, Corey? If you have a party, you invite who you want to invite. And the panel of 4 said, nope, we're not going to invite them. Now, here's where I kick back to the people that say, you knew what you were signing up for. You're right. We were told it was a 4-year transition. But in the last 2 years, there has been more changes in college athletics than any time in history.
For sure.
The transfer portal, the NIL, there has been changes. There's players played in 4 or 5 high schools, in 3 Power 5 schools. They never miss a possession. You're going to tell my players they can't play. So you say, well, Coach, why don't you just accept that? Well, when you really do research, you find out the legislative process from the D1 Council, the Transformation Committee, on and on and on. But then they make changes all the time. I mean, I've got data, I've got documentation of just changes that are made about a grad student, a rule, not an individual, but a rule. Or we're going to change this, or we're going to change that. So it can be done. Here's the problem. Nobody cared. They didn't care about that. So I challenged them. I said that Scott and Sharon Davenport out of their pocket, I've done. I will pay. And these are NCAA officials. I will fly you to Louisville. I will house you in the finest hotel in this town. I will feed you at the best restaurants we have. You come look my players in the eye like I do every day.
Mm.
And you explain to them. And they would cite, this committee or this procedure, this process. And I said, no, you're not answering my question. Will you come? Well, no. Yet, will you come? Well, the committee's going to meet. No, will you come? I look them in the eye every day. Now, to substantiate why I'm so passionate, that was March the 8th. On May the 14th was graduation at Bellarmine. We had 5 seniors earn 8 degrees. 2 masters in business administration, a master's in education, and 5 bachelor's degrees. And you're going to tell my kids they can't play.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I've had award-winning investigative reporters beg me to allow them to accompany my 2 captains and knock on doors in Indianapolis and get it with a camera on his shoulder to get answers. They don't care. I understand. But I look them in the eye every day. If they had to look them in the eye, they would change the world. They would change the world.
Definitely. To me,
and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a period of time, but 4 years.
That's absurd.
Now, I will say this. Our late president, Dr. Jay McGowan, in 2012, looked into transitioning. The financial commitment from 2012 to when we did it in 2019, 7 years, tripled. It tripled. To me, that shows you're serious.
Right.
I'm perplexed.
It's from my perspective, hearing everything you just mentioned, Mr. Davenport, it's like they don't want to face the music, quintessentially. It's what it sounds like.
Well, I think people in positions of power, my opinion, in college athletics need to be people who understand a college campus, who understand a locker room, who understand young people. Without them, we have no college sports.
That's true. Very true.
And, Corey, I'm not doing this to embarrass you, but I want you just to guesstimate men's and women's Division 1, 2, 3, not JUCO, not NAIA, men and women Division 1, 2, 3. How many student athletes in the NCAA alone?
I say minimum at least, I know over 1,200.
Over 460,000.
Oh, I was off by a little bit.
So what are we talking about when we talk about name, image, and likeness? What are we talking about? We're talking about a minuscule number. It's nothing. So when I take these young people in, oh, I hope they make the NBA. They're not going to. We're at 37 semesters. 35. I'm sorry, 35. We've never had a semester under a 3.0 as a team, ever.
That's impressive.
You know, I mentioned we had 5 players get 8 degrees last year. Here's what I don't understand. Who cares? If the rule was 2 years instead of 4, who cares? You've already tripled the financial commitment. That's going to deter a lot of schools. But the goal should be for these players to have 4 of the greatest years of their life.
Absolutely.
But to use the passion, the attention to detail, the dedication, the next 40, 45 years of their life. I have 3 freshmen in my locker room right now. Pete Suter, Zach Price, and Michael Bova. 3 freshmen. Let me get real. They're going to work somewhere between the year 2065 and 2070 in the real world. 20, just do the math. They're 18 years old right now.
A lot of time.
But we're teaching attention to detail, passion, dedication. That's going to pay off the next 40, 45 years of their life. So no matter what we do in college sports, we have to put the young people first. And that's why I can't let it go. I can't, my folder, I can reach it with my right hand. I mean, I've learned more of legislative process. I will tell you this, the governor of the state of Kentucky, and I am as non-political person as there is. All I want, what's right. The governor of the state of Kentucky, without having to do it, wrote a letter to a Power 5 commissioner that'll go unnamed and begged him to change this rule on behalf of these young men. Do what's right.
Exactly.
The governor, he never got a response.
That's pretty sad when the governor can't even get a reply.
Never got a forget you, thank you, sorry. No, nothing.
That lets me know, excuse me, for me, that lets me know that they know how wrong they are. If you're going to completely ignore a state official with a stature as the state's governor, come on now.
I don't, again, if they had to look them in the eye, it'd be different. And they refused.
Oh, you know for a fact that they would. It definitely would change. So I want to ask you, you're talking about how you have 3 freshmen on your team currently. How do you convince a parent to allow them to turn over their child to you to coach them for 4 years? Because that's a big commitment as a parent.
It is. That's what recruiting, especially at our level, should be about. That we are going to push them as hard or harder than they've ever been pushed in their life. Academically, athletically, socially. But we're going to support them outside of their parents more than it's only fair if you push them, if at the same time you support them. It's hard. Now, you hear the word culture a lot in sports.
For sure.
I am not being argumentative. I'm not, but we believe in a different approach. See, the word culture to me sounds great, and they cheer for each other, and it's warm and fuzzy and all that. We utilize the word program because to us, the word program means you have a plan. By definition, you have a plan. Well, that plan is going to apply to their life. Like I said, academically, athletically, and socially. See, that's a program. That's when you graduate 5 guys with 8 degrees. That's when you have a 3.0 every time. And you're planning for the next 40, 45 years of their life. Last June, we had a wedding on a Saturday and the following Friday. So 7 calendar days. There was 5 teammates in those weddings. They never knew them till they came to this campus. That's having a program.
No, it definitely is. I want to get your thoughts on two more things before we end this great conversation, because I know you're busy and I know you got things to do.
We're going to have the best practice of the year today.
That's the way to be, man. That's the way to be.
That's the goal. Best practice.
Yeah.
It says right on the top of my practice plan. Best practice of the year.
When your time is all said and done here on this earth, Coach, how does Scott Davenport, the person, want to be remembered?
Okay. 4 years ago, March, I referenced my high school coach, Al Peffer. He passed away 4 years ago next month. He taught 43 years, U.S. history. You can imagine how many students he taught. He taught at Shawnee High School. He taught at Manual. He taught at Iroquois. He taught at J-Town. He taught at Eastern. He passed away. The visitation was on a Friday. He requested no flowers. Now, Corey, you may be a lot better person than me, but I go to a lot of visitations, and if they ask for a donation to a outside group, unless you do it right on the spot, many times it's forgotten, right? Coach asked for no flowers. He wanted shoes for young people, because he was a very, very, very hyper individual. In retirement, he started clothing drives because he taught a lot of underprivileged young people. Well, he called me about 2 years before he passed, and he said, I need a favor. I said, yes, sir, Coach, what do you need? He said, well, I've got some young people that need big sizes and shoes. And I'm sure when your players are finished, their shoes are in great shape. Well, it went from our locker room, U of L men, U of L women, Bellarmine women. And my last trip to Coach's house, I had to borrow a pickup truck from Bellarmine that was literally overflowing with bags of shoes for kids that need them.
Yeah.
So at his visitation, all he wanted was a new pair of shoes for elementary kids. So I went to the visitation on Friday. I saw a lot of my teammates. I went recruiting in Cincinnati that night to watch a junior for us right now, Alec Freen from Cincinnati Moeller. I drove back. I was a pallbearer the next morning. I called the funeral on Monday morning, and I said, how many pair of shoes? And they said, there's 257 pair of shoes here. People had gone to Shoe Carnival. They'd gone to all these Shoe Sensation. They had gone Dick's Sporting Goods. They were buying 2 for 1, 3 for 1. All these, they were all coming in with their shoes. And I said, where are the shoes going to go? And they're going to a local elementary school here in Louisville. Those kids went to school that day, not knowing. They went home because of my high school coach with a brand new pair of shoes. When I'm gone, I want shoes for kids, because that's what he taught me.
That's pretty actually very pretty impactful when you look about it from the outside perspective. Some people may not see it that way, but little things like that go a long way. They really do.
Well, I went to Fraser Elementary, Southern Middle, or Southern Junior High, which is now Olmsted North, and I went to Iroquois. And I wouldn't trade it for one thing. Wouldn't trade it. Those teachers, those coaches, principals, they were incredible. They were incredible. And to play under a high school coach that when he was gone, that's what he wanted. I just want to be able to do what he taught me.
Coach, I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to let you get, man. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about some stuff outside of just sports, because in reality, coaches are people. There's more than just sports when it comes to the individual. I want to thank you for your time, sir.